जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद
जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद
जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद
जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद
जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद
जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद
श्री चैतन्य चरितामृत की जय। श्रील कृष्णदास कविराज गोस्वामी की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। सामवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम राम
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita reading. We are reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 17, Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in his youth. So, in our last session, we read about how the tailor of Srivas Thakur got darshan. First of all, he was a meat eater. He was a Muslim, but he was the tailor of Srivas Thakur, and he also got to see the dance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he got attracted to the dancing. And seeing this, Mahaprabhu revealed his Krishna's form to uh, this tailor, and seeing this, uh, the tailor went into ecstasy, and he was awakened. His love of Godhead was awakened, and he started dancing in ecstasy. I have seen, I have seen. And here was Mahaprabhu as Krishna. So he asked Srivas Thakur, "Where is my flute?" And Srivas Thakur said, "The gopis stole your flute." Mahaprabhu went into ecstasy and he said, "Go on speaking, go on speaking." So in this way, Srivas Thakur spoke about the sweetness of Vrindavan pastimes. And as Mahaprabhu was going deeper and deeper into ecstasy, experiencing jubilation, hearing the description of Srivas Thakur, Srivas Thakur explained the Ras Leela pastimes. Meanwhile, as he was describing all this, it was morning and the sun rose, and Mahaprabhu embraced Srivas Thakur. So that pastime we had read. And after that, we read that once Mahaprabhu was dancing with his devotees, and one Brahmana's wife, she came and took dust from the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And again, she went and she was taking dust. So, in that context, we discussed how Srila Prabhupada said, although it is good for the person who's taking dust of a saintly person, it is good. Why it is good? Because this person will drop all his sinful reactions on that saintly person, and he'll become free and he'll go away. But the saintly person, if he is not very strong spiritually, he will have to suffer the consequences, the reactions of those sins of the people who are touching his lotus feet. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada said that we should not allow people to, especially people in general, to touch the lotus, I don't know, lotus or not, but to touch our feet, we should not do that. Generally, people do that, and many times they do it with this intention only because they know touching saintly person's feet will be good for me. I'll drop my sins, I'll become free. And then what will you do after you become free? Go and commit sins again. And then again go back and touch some saintly person's feet and drop off your sins. Is that a good practice? No. It's like the Christians going to the church and confessing and again go back and do sinful activities again. There is no change of heart, isn't it? So why you should waste your, why you should risk your devotional life for the sake of people who are not even serious, right? It's a different thing when a spiritual master, you know, allows the disciple to touch the lotus feet. That's a whole different thing. So anyway, so on that we discussed uh, last class about touching feet. So we'll continue from there, or maybe we can quickly go back to that verse in case we missed any points there. As she took the dust of his so what was so the point is when she was taking dust again and Mahaprabhu became unlimitedly unhappy. That's the point. Mahaprabhu became unlimitedly unhappy. So there Srila Prabhupada explained why Mahaprabhu became unhappy and what is the significance. Yeah. Sometimes in big meetings, people come to take the same advantage of touching our feet, Prabhupada's feet. On account of this, sometimes we have to suffer for some disease. As far as possible, no outsider should be allowed to touch one's feet, to take dust from them. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally showed this by his example, as explained in the next verse. Text 245. Sei Kshane Dhaya Prabhu Gangate Podila Nityananda Haridasa Dhwari Uthaila. Immediately he ran to the river Ganges and jumped in to counteract the sinful activities of that woman. So this woman who touched the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu, all people in this material world, why we are in this material world? Because we are carrying some karmic reactions, sinful activities. So of course she was the wife of a Brahmana, but she was also carrying sinful reactions. So Mahaprabhu ran to the river Ganges and jumped in to counteract the sinful activities of that woman. Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur caught him and raised him from the river. So Mahaprabhu went and jumped into the river. Then Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur went behind him and pulled him out of the water. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God himself, but he was playing the part of a preacher. Every preacher should know that being allowed to touch a Vaishnava's feet and take dust may be good for the person who takes it, but it is not good for the person who allows it to be taken. Every preacher should know that being allowed to touch a Vaishnava's feet and take dust may be good for the person who takes it, but it is not good for the person who allows it to be taken. As far as possible, this practice should ordinarily be avoided. Only initiated disciples should be allowed to take this advantage, not others. Those who are full of sinful activities should generally be avoided. Even initiated disciples also, like the disciples, obviously. So to the spiritual master, they'll touch the lotus feet of the spiritual master. General, for the people in general, very strictly, it should be forbidden. Sometimes we see amongst relatives there is a practice, isn't it? And then they come and touch your feet and all that. If they are not devotees, then that is also not a good practice. I'm talking about the extended, bigger family. It's just the culture. So everyone comes and touches your feet, and then they have their own lifestyle, meat eating, intoxication, whatever. They have all those things, but they just come and they touch the feet. So it should not be allowed. People in general, especially when you have taken to Krishna consciousness, now you belong to Krishna's family. You
We should
cannot allow
not
that.
touch also. We should not touch also, right, Mataji?
Uh, that that I'm not sure. I mean,
Mataji,
if the other person is sinful, yes, Prabhuji.
Mataji is basically a custom in Indian tradition to touch the feet of the elders.
Yeah.
So does it mean that that should not be done now?
No, no, no. We touch. I mean, I touched. I always touched my father-in-law, mother-in-law's feet, and yeah, that's okay. That's okay. But I'm talking about, like all the extended family, like everyone comes and touches. That's also okay, provided, like they are, what do you say? I mean, they can bow down in front of you. They don't have to touch the feet. You understand? Offering obeisances. It's just a sensitive thing. I mean, Prabhupada says ordinarily it should not be allowed. Like it should not be a regular practice. It should not be a regular practice. But sometimes things are beyond our control. Like you just visit once a year or something, and then they're coming and greeting you for the first time, and according to custom, they all come and bow down before you and maybe even touch your feet. You're the uncle or auntie, and they come and they touch. Out of custom tradition. Then if it is beyond, if you're not able to do anything, then Srila Prabhupada taught us this. You fold your hands and you offer it to your spiritual master. You don't take it yourself. This is not for me, this is for my spiritual master, like that. Uh, but uh,
So
but if
Mataji,
you're living in the same family, let's say like you're living in India and you're living in the same family, and they have nothing to do with your devotional lifestyle, and they're eating meat and they're doing all those things, and you're living there, uh, but they want to come and touch your feet all the time, and then I think it's not a good practice.
so
Prabhuji.
Mataji, I've seen many people as soon as you bow down to touch your feet, they hold your hands as if
Ah,
so
that's
that
good.
serves two purposes. You accept that acknowledgement as well as you don't allow them to touch their feet.
Correct. Good. That's nice. That's nice. Yeah. So like that. Yeah. So you accept the sentiment of the person, right?
Right.
So really,
But
the person, if it's just about honoring you and showing your respect, they'll be satisfied with that, and you'll be satisfied with that gesture. Just
right.
they're trying to bow down. Yeah.
It's basically bowing down and showing your respect rather than touching the feet. So
Exactly. But those who come specifically to touch, to drop the karma, they know why they're doing it, and they insist even forcibly coming and touching the feet. That is there. And that is usually not relatives actually. It's like outsiders. Like Prabhupada is talking about in Pandal programs like that. They see a sadhu, saintly person, they know, oh, touching saintly person's feet means. So that's what Srila Prabhupada is talking about here. But also in general, and Prabhupada is talking about preachers in general, like all of us, right? To smaller or greater extent, we are doing some little bit of preaching. So sometimes you have, people that you preach to, then they come and touch your feet. It's not good unless they're initiated. Why? Because when you have taken initiation means you have taken the process seriously, you have made commitments. But if you have not taken initiation, that means you have not made any commitment yet. How much you're practicing, how much you're not practicing, we don't know. That means the preacher has to take all your karma. sinful reactions. And taking all that, now his devotional life, devotional progress will be choked. That's the whole thing. So, in general, don't allow anyone to touch your feet. I mean, just, and as Prabhuji
But
said,
we can touch, right? We
superiors, yeah, superiors, but also we should be, I think we should also be considerate in this case. I'm just thinking now, Prabhupada is saying, even I have to face like that. So, by now we understand, I think last class also I said, like when we carry, it's not like as soon as we take to Krishna consciousness, we are free from all our karma. It's not like that. It's a process. Like Prabhupada gives the switch of the fan is turned off, but it is still rotating gradually. So we are still carrying our baggage. When we go and touch another devotee's feet, then we are putting that devotee at risk,
not
isn't it?
devotee, karmi, I'm saying. Karmi teeter, karmi.
Achak, meat eater karmi, you're saying.
I means relatives, I'm saying. They're, like senior, but
Yes,
relatives.
Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Yeah. Out of respect, because on that level, like let's say your mother-in-law, father-in-law, parents, seniors, yeah, bow down before them. With that, so why are you bowing down before them? Because they are superiors, and we still have this body, we still have, duties in this world. So, yeah,
And
if
Mataji,
you,
when we are bound down, we are basically bound down to the God in them, right, Krishna?
yeah, that is also there. Yeah, that's what Lord Shiva would do. He was actually seeing the Paramatma in everyone's heart. He was seeing the Supreme Lord in everyone's heart. So, yeah. So that's nice. That's a very good meditation. So that way you're actually bound down to the Supreme Lord. But even otherwise, the relationship also, why not? Like you honor your parents, you honor your teachers, your superiors. So honoring that relationship also, we can bow down. There's nothing wrong with that. Of course, seeing Paramatma, the Supreme Lord, and bowing down to the Supreme Lord, that's the best actually. Then that way you won't see only in that, you'll see in everything now. You'll see, you'll respect everyone, not just your superior or anyone, because the Lord is there in everyone, isn't it? So if we are actually seeing that way, then we will be honoring and respecting everyone. Okay, so that is clear. Let's continue reading. विजय आचार्यर घरे से रात्रे रहिला प्रातः प्रातः काले भक्त सबे घरे लोया गेला. So what happened here? Mahaprabhu went and jumped into the river Ganges, and Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur pulled him out of the water. That night, the Lord stayed at the house of Vijaya Acharya. In the morning, the Lord took all his devotees and returned home. So the kirtan was happening. So also we read the Lord did the drama. Remember? He became Rukmini Devi in Chandrasekhar Acharya's home. He did the drama we discussed. So he would perform pastimes either in Chandrasekhar Acharya's home or in Srivas Thakur's home. So one night like this, when there was kirtan, this lady came and took the dust, and then that night itself Mahaprabhu went and jumped in the river Ganges to counteract the sinful reactions of that lady. And then from there he went to Vijaya Acharya's house. He spent the night in Vijaya Acharya's house along with all the devotees. And then the next day morning, the Lord came back with all his devotees. So Vijaya Acharya is a scribe. Scribe. He had a very beautiful handwriting. So there's a pastime about him described in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So we'll discuss it another time. Okay. He returned home the next morning. एकदिन गोपी भावे गृहे ते बसिया गोपी गोपी नाम लोया विषन्न होया. One day, the Lord, in the ecstasy of the gopis, was sitting in his house, very morose in separation. He was calling, Gopi, Gopi. So now we are coming towards the end of Mahaprabhu's Grihastha Leela. So we know that Mahaprabhu is Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So Mahaprabhu is in the mood of a gopi, in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So one day Mahaprabhu is chanting Gopi, Gopi, he's chanting, sitting and chanting. Instead of saying Krishna, Krishna, he's chanting Gopi, Gopi. And he's still in the Grihastha ashram, okay? Very morose, in separation. He was calling Gopi, Gopi, in the ecstasy of the gopis. So he himself is in the mood of a gopi, and in the ecstasy of the gopis, he was sitting in his house. Mahaprabhu is sitting in his own house. So this is not in Srivas Angan with surrounded by devotees. He was in his own house, sitting and feeling great separation in the mood of a gopi. He's chanting Gopi, Gopi. एक पड़ुया आइला प्रभु के एक पड़ुया आइला प्रभु के देखिते गोपी गोपी नाम सुनी लागिला बोलिते. A student who came to see the Lord was astonished that the Lord was chanting Gopi, Gopi. Thus he spoke as follows. So Mahaprabhu is Nimai Pandit. Of course, by this time Mahaprabhu had already. So see, in we don't see so many details here in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but you'll find these details in Chaitanya Bhagavat, the early pastimes of Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu had already stopped teaching because after he returned from Gaya, that is when he manifested his mood of a bhakta, of a devotee, of a Mahabhagavat. And then when he manifested that, he was still a teacher. He had students, so they would wait for him every day for classes. And he would come, and all he would say was he would only talk about Krishna all the time. So they came to study from him grammar and logic, like that, Sanskrit grammar. And Mahaprabhu, whatever he taught, he would say the meaning of everything is only Krishna. So the students went and told to the teacher of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit is not teaching properly, like that. And then once the teacher, Gangadas Pandit, he called Nimai and he said, you're such a qualified teacher, you're blessed, you have the blessings of the Supreme Lord, nobody is a teacher like you. Why don't you take your duty seriously? Your father is also a devotee, but that doesn't mean you have to neglect your duties, like that. He gave him some good advice. So Mahaprabhu said, all right, I will teach now. But again, it's beyond his control, right? As soon as he would hear anyone recite any shloka of Bhagavatam, he would just go into ecstasy. So finally, uh, I don't know, 10 hours or something had passed of school hours, but no topic was covered one day. So, and when Mahaprabhu would go into ecstasy, when he came back into external consciousness, he would not remember what happened. He would ask the students, "So what did I teach today?" And the students would say, "We don't understand, but whatever you say is right. You say everything means Krishna," like that. So then finally one day Mahaprabhu said that uh, I must confide in you that I'm not able to teach anymore, because wherever I see, in whichever direction I see, I only see a black boy, Krishna. So I'm not able to teach. I give you my blessings. You go and uh, learn, study from any. There are so many teachers in Navadvip, right? Navadvip was the center of learning. So you can go and learn from any other teacher. You have my full blessings. I'm not able to teach anymore. And then the students said, actually, after studying under you, now we find ourselves incapable of studying under any other teacher. We cannot study under anyone else. Actually, whatever we have learned from you, even if it is for 1 month, 2 months, whatever, that is enough for a whole lifetime. We don't need to study anymore. Mahaprabhu said that I give up, I stop teaching from today onwards, and the students said that we stop studying from today onwards. They tied up their books and they said, we are not going to study. And then they all followed Mahaprabhu. Now we'll just do Kirtan like that. But of course, Mahaprabhu is known as Nimai Pandit, right? So on this day, on this particular occasion, some student came to Nimai Pandit. He was in his house and he is chanting Gopi Gopi in separation. So one student came to Nimai Pandit's house. So what did this student say? Why are you chanting the names Gopi Gopi instead of the holy names of Lord Krishna, which is so glorious? What pious result will you achieve by such chanting? Acha, sorry, I didn't read the Bengali. Krishna Nama Nalao Kene, Krishna Nama Dhanya, Gopi Gopi Bolileva Kiba Hoy Punya. Why are you chanting the names Gopi Gopi instead of the holy name of Lord Krishna, which is so glorious? What pious result will you achieve by such chanting? Of course, the students, they, they're all scholars in Shastra. So from Shastra only they are saying, but they didn't recognize. That is why we are reading from the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita now in the morning classes. Who can understand Krishna? By studying Shastra, you cannot know Krishna. He's standing right in front of them as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And these are all learned scholars in the scriptures. They're saying, chant the names of Krishna. That's what is said. But the same Krishna is standing, sitting in front of them. They cannot recognize him. And they criticize him also. Let's see the fun. Huh? So, unless we receive the mercy of Krishna, we cannot understand Krishna. Even if we study Shastra, we cannot know Krishna unless we get the mercy of Krishna. So here the student is saying, why are you chanting the names Gopi Gopi instead of the holy name of Lord Krishna, which is so glorious? What pious result will you achieve by such chanting? Purport. It is said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigyeha na bujhai. No one can understand the activities of a pure devotee. So, a very grave instruction for all of us. No one can understand the activities of a pure devotee. A student or neophyte devotee could not possibly understand why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting the name of the gopis. Nor should the student have asked the Lord about the potency of chanting Gopi Gopi. Like in Hindi, they say choti muh badi baat, right? So we should act according to our position. Not that now I know little bit of, I know a few shlokas, so now I can go and challenge anyone, even up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the problem of becoming puffed up with little learning, pride, right? So a student or neophyte devotee could not possibly understand why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting the name of the gopis. Nor should the student have asked the Lord about the potency of chanting Gopi Gopi. The neophyte student was certainly convinced of the piety in the chanting of Krishna's holy name. But this sort of attitude is also offensive. What sort of attitude? Going and challenging, right? Because I know little bit, based on that I feel I know everything, and I think I have the authority to challenge anyone because I know everything. I know little bit. But yasya amatam matam, yasya matam amatam. One who thinks he knows actually does not know. One who thinks he does not know, he knows something. So as soon as I think that yes, I know, that means I don't know anything. As soon as I feel I know, that means I don't know anything. So the student should not have acted like this, right? So this is offensive, Srila Prabhupada is saying. Uh, the neophyte student was certainly convinced of the piety in the chanting of Krishna's holy name, but this sort of attitude is also offensive. Dharma vrata tyaga hutadi sarva shubha kriya samyam api pramadaha. To chant the holy name of Krishna in exchange for the achievement of piety is an offense. Okay. So here one of the 10 offenses, right? Eighth offense. Consider the chanting of holy name of the Lord to be one of the ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas. So that is an offense, like all the other, like dharma and vrata, dana, tapa, like that chanting of the holy name. They are all pious activities. That's an offense. So chanting Krishna's name will give you some punya. If that is the idea, that's actually an offense to the holy name. This, of course, was unknown to the student. He didn't know that it was an offense. Thus, he innocently asked, what piety is there in the chanting of the name Gopi? He did not know that there is no question of piety or impiety. The chanting of the holy name of Krishna or the holy name Gopi is on the transcendental platform of loving affairs. Since he was not expert in understanding such transcendental activities, his question was merely impudent. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, apparently greatly angry at him, reacted as follows. So, you understood what happened here? The student is coming from the perspective of punya and papa. You chant Krishna's name, there is some punya. What punya do you get by chanting Gopi's names? That was his question. But what is the level? Chanting of Krishna's name and chanting of Gopi's name is on the transcendental platform. It's not on the material platform. Piety and impiety is on the material platform. But chanting of the holy names of the Lord, and what to speak of when Mahaprabhu is chanting, right? Chanting also is done. There is offensive stage and clearing stage and Shuddhanam, like that. Of course, chanting is always transcendental, but here Mahaprabhu himself is chanting. So this a student should not have asked, because he had no authority there. He's talking on the material platform and he's even challenging there. Srila Prabhupada is saying that he asked innocently, but he should not have asked. He should not have asked. Again, same thing, choti mu badi baat, right? It's like a first grader going and asking a PhD student something, what are you doing? What is this subject that you're studying? Like that. something like that, or even correcting. So Mahaprabhu got angry, obviously. Why not? He got angry. Of course, Mahaprabhu's anger, again, it's not like material anger. His anger is also completely transcendental. There's a purpose behind everything that the Lord does. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, apparently greatly angry at him, reacted as follows. What did Mahaprabhu say? Shuni Prabhu Krodhe Koila Krishna Doshodgara Henga Loya Uthila Prabhu Poduya Mari Bara. Hearing the foolish student, the Lord became greatly angry and rebuked Lord Krishna in various ways. Taking up a stick, he rose to strike the student. So the student said, what? Why are you chanting Gopi's name? What piety is there in chanting Gopi's name? You should chant Krishna's name, because when you chant Krishna's name, it brings piety. What did Mahaprabhu do? He heard the foolish student, became greatly angry, and he started rebuking Krishna. Why? Because now Mahaprabhu is in the mood of a gopi. Krishna left the gopis and went, isn't it? So he's angry at Krishna and he's rebuking Krishna and he's angry at this student for supporting Krishna. He's in a different bhav now. Mahaprabhu is on a completely transcendental platform. So taking up a stick, he rose to strike the student. Purport. It is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that when Uddhava came from Lord Krishna with a message for the gopis, all the gopis, especially Srimati Radharani, denounced Krishna in various ways. Right? Oh, he's a debauchee, he's this, he's that, like that. But who is the greatest lover of Krishna? She is the greatest lover of Krishna. So this is an ecstasy, right? This is out of love. So Srimati Radharani denounced Krishna in various ways. Such denunciations, however, reflect an exuberant, loving attitude that an ordinary man cannot understand. When the foolish student questioned Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya similarly rebuked Lord Krishna, exactly like Srimati Radharani denouncing Krishna when Uddhava came. Here, when this student said, why chant Gopi's name, chant Krishna's name, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, exactly like Srimati Radharani, is saying, oh, that Krishna, that cheat, like that. When the foolish student questioned Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya similarly rebuked Lord Krishna in loving exuberance. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the mood of the gopis and the student advocated the cause of Sri Krishna, Lord Chaitanya was greatly angry. Yes, he was greatly angry. Seeing his anger, the foolish student, who was an ordinary atheistic Smarta Brahmana, see, he's not even a devotee. He's a Smarta Brahmana. He's thinking chanting of the holy name is meant for some punya karma, that's all. An ordinary atheistic, he's atheistic, Smarta Brahmana. And when Mahaprabhu got angry, seeing him angry, the foolish student, who was an ordinary atheistic Smarta Brahmana, foolishly misjudged him. Thus, he and a party of students were ready to strike the Lord in retaliation. After this incident, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take sannyas so that people would not commit offenses against him, considering him an ordinary householder. For in India, even now, a sannyasi is naturally offered respect. Of course, this pastime will continue. We will read. There are more verses coming up. But here, Srila Prabhupada in the purport is giving us, ahead of time is telling us. So this is the reason why Mahaprabhu took sannyas. Already he had devotees that loved him day and night. They wanted to be with him. But for the sake of these atheistic people who were ready to beat Mahaprabhu, They were ready to beat him up. And not only that, they would go around talking about him loosely, like making fun of him, criticizing him, and thinking that how is he better than us? He's a Brahmana, we are Brahmanas. He's a teacher, we are teachers, we are students, we are also studying Shastra. In what way is he better than us that he becomes angry at us and he comes to attack with us with a stick? He comes to attack us with a stick. If he does that again, we are going to teach him a lesson like that. And Mahaprabhu is thinking, if these people have this type of attitude towards me, they're going to go to hell. Because he may look like a householder, but nevertheless, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That offense to the Supreme Lord will drive them to hell. And Mahaprabhu's heart is weeping for such rebellious souls. For their sake, he gave up the association of his loving devotees, with whom every night he would do kirtan. He gave up the association. He was the only protector for his widowed mother and his young wife. She was like 14 years old. Only protector. No other male member in the family. This was back then in the Vedic setup of society. And he gave everything up for whose sake? For these people who rejected him. Why he took sannyas? Because people don't criticize sannyasis. They had this, even those who are smartas, even those who are atheistic, they believed in Shastra. They didn't believe in God, but they followed Shastra, they followed Dharma. So sannyasis are supposed to be respected. When you see a sannyasi, you go and bow down before them. So even though they are bowing down before a sannyasi, he is still the Supreme Lord. They'll get the credit of bowing down before the Supreme Lord, even though they didn't do it knowingly. And now, thinking he's a householder, they're criticizing him, but still he's the Supreme Lord. That criticism is directed towards the Supreme Lord. So the Lord tricked them. He tricked them. But even unknowingly, when they bow down to him, they will actually benefit. This is the mercy of Mahaprabhu. So we will continue reading. This pastime will go on. There are more verses, details about what happened. We will continue tomorrow. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.